Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight's sessions will be analysis and improvement session again. And I have with me tonight a couple national technical team members and James Hyland, also our program manager for Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. So we have Breen Trott and we have Nicholas Verly. So welcome everybody to this session. So we'll get right into it. As usual, we'll be taking turns to analyze some videos, and you'll see tonight we have a variety of very different style of videos. So please don't hesitate if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll make sure that they'll get answered. And we'll also leave some time at the end of the session to answer everybody, to make sure everybody gets their answer. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, session. Perfect. All right, so as usual, a little refresher, just a reminder that we'll be using our CASI core and advanced competencies to help us narrow our analysis and be specific about one of the aspects one at a time when we deliver improvement. So you'll see these are some of the questions that you can ask yourself when you ANI. And you'll see that the next video, as I was saying, they're very varied and origin from different environments. Some are from CASI courses, but some are also from just non-CASI events or teaching. You'll see some kids and teenagers tonight as well. So please keep in mind that the first thing that you may see might not be the first thing that we see, and that's totally fine as well. We'll get started with the first video, which is on which side you guys want.
So I'm going to be analyzing this video. This is shot in the springtime on Blue Run. And the intent of this video, I just told the person to kind of do a free lap and go have some fun, and got some footage of them. So we'll take a look at this, and once we see it, we'll go to work on analyzing it. It's always good to kind of give your rider an idea. So are they going to do carb turns or short turns or a free run? So again, this one's a free run, but the person's kind of chose to do a bit of a short turn. So I'm thinking about an ideal in my head, what the ideal would look like. And then I see my snowboarder going down the run. And so I'm going to basically compare that snowboarder to the ideal. And then I'm going to use the competencies. So I'm going to use the beginner competencies on this rider, core competencies. So there's a bit of a deficiency on all of the core competencies. So they're not doing everything perfect. So my first goal is to figure out which competency is the most lacking. I might only have like an hour to improve this person, or maybe it's a half day lesson or a full day, but I kind of want to pick the competency that's going to give me the best bang for my buck. So when I watch this person ride, I can start by, it's really slushy out. So snow direction is a great thing to start looking at. I can see their track clearly, maybe on the next run, or if I let them go ahead of me, I might be able to look down at their track and see what's going on. And then I can use video and slow-mo is really ideal. So that's what we have right now. So if I start looking at kind of turn shape, there's something that kind of sticks out at my eye right away. It's more of an S. It's not very C. So it's going to be harder for this person to control their speed. Their board's going down the hill a lot of the time and not across the hill a lot. Mm-hmm. And they seem to spend a little bit more time on one side than the other. So this person is kind of spending a little bit more time on their heel side edge, which is pretty normal. Yeah. And it's kind of turning into a bit of a brace. So they're killing a lot of speed on their heel edge. And and they go back onto their toe side. And often this turn's completed, but often the turn's not really completed. So they keep picking up speed on that heel side edge. So the competency that comes to mind first would probably be turning with the lower body. That's the one that I would go after. That's the one that I think could get me the best bang for the buck. You can tell their upper body is not really very well rotationally aligned. So I mean, centered and mobile would easily work. Often they're kind of leaning way out over their toe edge. So balance along the working edge could also work, but I'm going to go with turning with the lower body because that one seems the most obvious to me. Their upper body is really swinging around a lot and their turn shape isn't great. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of rotational energy, especially going onto the heel side. If you watch, they want to look down the hill. So they look down with their head and that opens up their shoulders. And then they get this big kind of spin going on their heel side. And then they have to try to control that. So I think the first thing, if I switch over, so I've kind of picked out my competency now. And so maybe I could think of like a skill focus. So probably if I'm thinking of steering, I mean, edging and pivoting would make the most sense. And this person's pivoting a lot. And I think they could maybe get away with a little more edging. So I'd probably use the skill of edging with the competency of turning with the lower body. And then it's really slushy out today. So I'd want to keep that in mind. This person has just really wanted to have fun. So, I mean, they've already achieved their goal. They look like they're having lots of fun. So really, I mean, they're doing great. But if I wanted to help them in the improvement realm, I'd probably bring them to maybe a green run just for a little bit and get them to follow my track. So just do some follow the leader and kind of show them the turn shape of more of a C and less of an S. Yeah, so get them following me. And then once they've kind of mastered that on a green run, take it back to the black run and let them follow me some more. And if that was working, then I could try a more kind of complex tactic, maybe like hop into the heel side turn and hop into the toe side turn to promote that edging. Yeah, but I think I'll leave that one there for now. We'll roll on to the next video.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just checking the chat. That's good. I agree with what you say that they look like they're having a lot of fun. I think like for this person, they have some mobility because you can tell like they're going for it, right? And that's a good start to build up on. Like some people are like you want to develop mobility, but developing mobility when you're far from having it can be a little bit tough with this person, like just going down, they're having fun, they're playing with the snow, and they have the right attitude to get the progress. So I'm sure following a lesson with you would get them to progress real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, the next person. We have an intermediate and a black run. I think it's a black run. Sometimes it's hard to judge in the video, but who uploaded this one? Is it?
That's fine. That was me. So let's just watch it, yes. Yeah, this was a video that I took during a level 3 course. So this is actually a rider that's trying pretty much for the first time doing short turns the way they would do them on the level 3 exam, and it's pretty typical slope for that. It's long, it's steep, it's got a consistent pitch. The snow is pretty good. It's grippy, it's pretty firm. There's a lot of good things happening in this video, I think. All things considered, this is our rider's pretty much first attempt doing this maneuver, and I think they did a pretty good job. Short turns are certainly not my forte, so I know the feeling of starting your run and just trying to get it to work from top to bottom, and kudos for a solid attempt from our rider here. Consistent speed from top to bottom. The corridor width is pretty good, not too wide. And you can see on the toe side, there's like an occasional zing, like a bit of a zip. It just kind of fires right out of the turn, which if it was harnessed in the right way, that could really be a good thing. And the rhythm is pretty good from top to bottom, I think. So look at our rider. Due to improve, is there a movement that they could do, or when could they do it? So since we're on a level 3 course here, we could think maybe about our advanced competencies. There's a couple of things that stand out to me, but let's maybe try to focus on steering versatility. We can see there's a pretty big difference between the toe side turns and the heel side turns. But on both of the edges, the rider really relies on bigger movements to turn the snowboard and then has to make some adjustments to kind of recover and stay in control to kind of get that rhythm to keep going. You'll notice on the toe side turn that they tend to be a lot quicker than the heels. And like I said already, there's a bit of a zing when they fire out of it, especially towards the end or the bottom of those turns. They tend to get low kind of quick by bending their knees about halfway through the turn. And what that does is it kind of just gets the board on edge really quickly. And when that happens so quick, that's kind of what's creating that bit of a zip that shoots them out of the turn. And then you can also see when they're on their toes that they don't really point their hips across the run. The hips are always pointing downhill on the toe side. That kind of makes it harder to finish that turn by getting the board to go across the slope. And that probably is what's making that transition on the heels a little harder. So when they're on their heels, you can see that the turns take a lot longer and they're used almost more for speed control rather than like really getting a good grip on the board and kind of getting the same result as on the toe side. Mm-hmm. And then you can see that that edge change for the heels pretty much happens almost when the board's pointing down the slope. So it's almost downhill. It's almost too late. So doing that makes it really difficult to actually grip the board and get like a nice round turn that's going to help you start the next turn again. Right? They get a little bit locked and they just kind of push on the heel edge when it's too late. And that doesn't really guide the board. It kind of just makes it wash down. Right? So what I think I'd recommend here is two things that are pretty similar. On the toe side, I'd probably tell them to try to rely less on some angulation skills to turn the board. So what I mean is to maybe tone down that really rapid knee movement by bending the knees and try to blend it by using the hips to continue turning the hips across the slopes and to use the knees to guide the board from like throughout the turn and across the fall line. But then on the heel side, I'd encourage the rider to do almost the opposite because they kind of just stay static on their heels. I'd get them to maybe try to get a little bit lower on their board, flexing their knees, flexing their ankles. And what that's going to do is going to help them have that range of motion that they could use to push their knees in the direction to get the board to go kind of across the slope and get a little bit more grip earlier in the turn. And that's going to give them a bit of a better grip and better rhythm, easier to finish the turn. And it'll get a bit more symmetrical. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that's pretty complete. Do you guys have anything to add? James, Breen, we're good?
Cool. No, I mean, I think you could go lots of different places. That was great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. You're welcome.
Next one.
Yeah, that's me again. All
That's
right.
you again? Okay. Well, I didn't know, so I just put them in.
I'm in the hot seat. I really like this video. I think it's super cool.
It's cool that you picked up a toe in.
Yeah. So this is during a Park 2 video in Whistler, and we have like a CASI evaluator in front towing somebody in. And our friend here landed the trick, but there's a couple of things that they can work on. They're attempting to clear a large jump. I can't remember if they had hit it or not before, but they're trying to get the speed dialed, and that's why they're getting towed in. Some of you might be familiar with this jump. It's the very first jump in the Blackcomb Terrain Park, and they build it pretty much identically every single year. In my opinion, it's one of the easiest jumps to read for speed because you pretty much just have to go straight into it. Unlike some of the other jumps in the Blackcomb Park, like Shack Right, where you always need to make a couple of adjustments. But with this jump, there's a fence at the top, you stand next to it, you drop in and you go straight. It has a long, steep landing, it's got a big, fat, sweet spot. So there's a lot of room to kind of go, even if you go a little bit bigger. But anyway, that doesn't really take away from the fact that it's a big jump and it's definitely intimidating. So evaluators dropping in ahead of the rider. They have really good speed, good position, really clean takeoff. They're comfortable in the air. They get right to the sweet spot. Boom. But then our rider kind of just creeps over it. They do a great job at following our friend in red here. They pretty much get every single turn the same. You can see heel toe right here. But then for whatever reason, they don't quite get to the sweet spot. And that's why I think this video is really cool. You kind of have to like zoom in a little bit to figure out what's going on. So there's two main things I think that kind of happened, and that's why our friend didn't get to the sweet spot. Number one, when they're copying the turns, they're a bit more aggressive. So you look especially at that heel edge turn right there, they push a lot on the snow. They get it. It's like a bit of a speed check almost, and I don't think that was enough to get them not to get to the sweet spot, but it definitely didn't help. But the second thing, and the most important thing in my opinion, is look at the difference between the evaluator and a rider when they reach the lip of the jump. So you see the evaluator right coming up there, strong legs. We can clearly see like a pop when they take off the lip, and that gives them like a really nice high arc in the air, a lot of amplitude, but a really smooth takeoff. Whereas our rider absorbs the takeoff. They suck their legs in, they suck in the energy, their knees bend down, and that creates like a huge drop in speed and a big drop in the amplitude. If you look at both arcs side by side, the evaluator is nice and high, and our rider is kind of low and flat, right? They just get over. So if we were going to relate this to any advanced competency, I would definitely go with strength and flow on this one, and more specifically strength. I'd encourage our rider to have stronger legs when they're taking off, when they're going off the ramp, all the way up to the takeoff. But they need to resist the forces of their field. These jumps are really smooth. Like Whistler does a really good job at building jumps that don't really have a lot of, like you don't really feel too much pressure when you're going up. They're very smooth, even though they're quite big. But you still need to resist it a little bit. But I would almost get a rider here to focus on obviously not letting their knees come up and suck in the jump when they're doing it. But this also just becomes almost like a battle of wills. It's like being strong physically, but you also have to be strong mentally. It's a strength and flow in your head, right? It's intimidating. You just have to convince yourself that this is the right thing to do. And I think I would honestly do exactly this with a rider. We'd watch the videos and tell them exactly what we just talked about right now, and you can see black and white the difference between the two jumpers. And hopefully that would help them understand what
Like
they
that.
change to be able to actually get the result that they're after. They have the skill set for it. It's just a matter of practicing and really being confident.
I like the strength and flow in their head. That's a good one. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
I mean, you can see it right, like he's following the evaluator. You can see the evaluator going in with confidence.
Yeah.
Like there's no dropping in speed. And this person in behind, like even with the turn, he's almost making the same turn, but not quite, right? You can see that he's shaking a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, well, it's a scary jump. It's a like it definitely sends you pretty high.
I
So
would be
like,
shaking.
even if you want to get to it, you're still kind of like you're going in so fast into these jumps that you're telling yourself like something must be wrong. Like what am I doing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can and even tell like if we're looking at it when we stop here at the bottom of the takeoff, you can see, sorry, here, just here. You can see that he's spraying snow,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
They're dumping speed with kind of
But I think even with that, if they had done that, but they had popped, they would have gotten like at least a little bit closer to the sweet spot, if not right in there.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a cool video.
Cool. Thanks. Anything else to add, team? Or you were done, Nick? I kind of interrupted you.
All done, all done. Yeah.
This one. Green. It was
Nice. I'm going to take this one. So this is a video of a 5-year-old child on a green one, as you can see. So let's just take a second and watch it and kind of see if your eye, catches anything. The biggest thing with kids is we're trying to get them to have fun. So if they're not having fun, they're not going to do it. So usually when I'm teaching kids, there's not a whole lot of A and I. It's kind of just encouraging and bringing them to different terrain and high-fiving and throwing snowballs. So with a little child, you might not tell them to improve, like, hey, I want you to go a little bit faster because they're a kid. It's not really going to work like that. But you could maybe think of, playing a game that might get them going a little bit faster, like follow the leader or something like that. This child's going at great speed, so I'd probably want to just leave it there because the faster they go, the more likely that they're going to knock themselves out. So probably slower is better. Um, they got a mean heel edge, so I'd kind of just work with that. I wouldn't try to convince this child to go onto their toe edge. Like, again, they wouldn't like it. It wouldn't be fun, and then you'd be in the lodge having hot chocolate in no time. So just kind of picking your battles and trying to play as many games with them as you can that might encourage them to do things. So if you look at this child, they're fairly, when they're on their heel edge, they're kind of resting and they don't have a lot of flexion in their joints. So something that you could do is kids love side trails and monkey trails. So maybe get this child on a wide open kind of monkey trail, or maybe like something with little rolls or something to promote them to start to bend their knees and look ahead. Um, anything with like hopping. So again, taking them into the park off the baby jumps and getting them hopping. Probably, you wouldn't want to go in the black park, but if there was like a fun park or something like that, or a Riglet park, take them in there and experiment with as much terrain as you can. Um, yeah, they're doing great for 5 years old. How far they travel in this video is pretty incredible. It's not a little run. You can see they're got some good speed control there. So maybe playing a game, maybe like red light, green light, that works on that ability to kind of stop and go more on a dime, like more quickly. Something like that would be good.
And I think one of the things that, like a mistake that sometimes parents, they don't necessarily know, they don't necessarily teach snowboarding, and they're really trying, they have the image in their mind that they want their kid to make turns, right? They want their kids to link the turns, to do the S's. But this kid is doing great, like you said, in terms of control. So he's basically linking penduluming and transforming it to almost like 180 to, it's like pendulum, extreme pendulum. And then you take them to slopes, like you said, that have the angles where they're gonna naturally develop the skills of going on their toes. So if you're taking them to a cat track, for example, that would have enough camber that would naturally force the kid to go under toe edge, or a little monkey trail, like you said, or bank turns. Some of the resorts have some learning terrain facilities for that. And that's probably going to work better than trying to tell the kid to just like work on the turn, because what they want to do right now is just have an adventure in the mountain, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you should remember this kid, and you'll see the last video of this session. This was 5 years old, and you'll see the evolution at 14.
Well,
cool. Anything else to add? I think we're good.
Yeah, unless James or Nick has anything, but yeah, with kids, you're just trying to keep them happy. So any games, it has to be all game related.
Yeah. Fun. Thanks, Bree.
No problem.
Picnic and backpack, always key. We're going with
Me.
Jamie.
Wheat. So we'll just take a look right off the top. The first competency I look at is strength and flow, no matter who I'm watching. So think about that while you're watching this rider.
Was it, like I said, a black run? It was a black run, right? I'm trying to recognize
Correct. Yeah.
Where was it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Wasn't there. This was from the level
This
3 or
is from
level
my
4.
drive. Okay, that's probably
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I don't know. Where were you? Okay. So well, you see a nice position there. Check out the heel side edge. There you go. And the reason I like this video is because you get the rider riding by you at speed, which is always nice to see. Like, so from far away, when I'm looking at strength and flow, um, I can tell that this is a strong rider. The person can maintain positions and hold positions. That's not the problem. When I look at the other component of strength and flow, I see, well, this is a hard one because it's slow motion. It's actually better sometimes, like slow motion is sometimes a bit overrated when you're looking at the flow aspect, because you don't see the consecutive movements and the actual flow of the run. This is getting pushed kind of too slow. But you will see as the rider gets closer, we can look at the flow of the movements and the flow of the body. And there's a stop there. And then we get onto our heel edge, and it's kind of jerky. And toe edge jerky up. The hand comes up, piked out. Okay, so that's the outcome of something else happening higher up in the turn. And you get a little glimpse of what it is. Watch from the heel side to the toe side. Okay, piked out there, heel to toe, up, back end of the board comes around, huge front foot pivot. Before they even touch anything in that first part of the arc, they've already made this huge rotational move, which ends up putting all those great movements and those great positions way farther down in the arc instead of being established higher up in the arc.
Mhm.
Right? So you'll see that in the flow aspect here. It's like chop, 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 chop. And that's because all the energy is being hit right at the end of the turn. Chop, chop, chop. So if I was looking at this rider and I'm going, okay, high-end rider, knows how to ride really well, I'd say, look, what we want to do is you've got some good movement patterns. We just have to rearrange things a little bit. So instead of rotating at the top at the first thing, right, to get into that next turn, shoulders, hips, we want the hips to move laterally across the board first. Resist rotation. This is going to be the biggest game changer for this rider. Resist rotation, move across the board first. Then everything else that you're doing, you come down, and you move through and you're not bracing at the end of the turn, you're actually able to control the arc more fully at the start. So if this dude or dudette, I'm not entirely sure, see how these hips are really piped out there and he needs to use that big rotational move to get onto his toe side edge. If he keeps the hips a little bit more centralized, wish you could see this here, instead of getting piked out like this, you want to get the hips forward onto the toe side edge. So you're actually pulling it from this position and then across, right? And you're going to see that in most riders, that hip tends to get stuck on that heel side edge. So it's one like this is a totally normal. And I have another video from a level 2 person, and Breen's actually going to bring this up. These movement patterns can stay consistent, level 1, level 2, level 3, all the way up to level 4, because you can do compensatory things that get your board to do what you're trying to do, right? Like there's lots of ways to snowboard. If you want to do the most efficient thing and control the arc, which is what this person wants to do, at this level, we want the most control for the most amount of time, right? So move the hips up, across, and down, and everything else that he knows how to do with the board, you just let him go. So pretty simple. Strength and flow, I'd move laterally first.
Yeah,
You're
so
going to see this a lot. You're going to see this a lot, especially from my mouth.
it's really working on changing that pattern, like that pattern that becomes a reflex for the person, and that's probably the hardest because this person I've been riding for a long time probably and ride with this pattern and just kind of get stuck in their own ways up until this they see themselves on a video maybe, or maybe they hear it from you, James. And yeah, just trying
One,
to get the same feeling, because sometimes that's tough to break that pattern because you have a feeling that you're under control with what you've developed as something that's your efficiency. Then you're trying to become efficient in a different way, and like that switch in between, that's where
yeah,
it takes a lot of strength and flow mentally, Nick.
yeah. You would take this person out of this zone into some more mellow terrain and just rework those patterns and build it up through terrain as you go. It's honestly, like Nick said, great riding. And Breen said great riding. I tend to not say all the great riding thing, and I apologize for that. There is some great riding here. It's just I like going straight at it.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely dynamism. A good exercise for this person could be to work on the resetting between each turns
Mhm.
on a slower pitch, like you said, on something easier. All right. Thanks. Anything else to add, Nick, Breen? Good.
Yep.
There's nothing. Oh, Tiki Shoots at Lake Louise. Yeah, I think that's it. I couldn't remember the name of the run, but thanks, Dan. Or Large. Yeah, that's where that's where we did the corridor. So yeah, that's Large. Thanks.
So this is me again.
Oh,
So this rider has obviously trying to 360. Um, they quite clearly have good body control. They have good ability to use their body, separate, bring their body back together. So you're seeing this rider going, obviously, the person knew that it wasn't a great setup and they put themselves in the air and they're like, oh shit, I gotta separate a little bit here to make this thing work. So the reason is if we back it up, and the great thing about park is most things happen in the preparation initiation phase, right? Like when you're going up to the jump and when you're going off the jump, that's where the gold is, right? So we can start by taking a look at this rider right here. There's that setup turn, that weird sort of toe side turn that puts the person out of balance. So I would have said, quite simply, look at your approach here and find a better approach line so that you can come in with a little bit more smoothness from edge to edge. And it doesn't jam you into this position where you're kind of like blocked up and then you're about to hit the jump. So that little setup turn right there, not needed. And that heel side turn, not needed, right? Barely landed, knuckle area. So taking a little bit more of a straight on approach where we can get a bit more of an hourglass look, and they're able to take off and set up in a more comfortable position. So person opens, lets the board come around, and then has to rotate to actually or counter rotate the lower body there just to shove it around. I'd work on approach and then connecting upper and lower. So if we look at just one of the core competencies, turning with the lower body or steering versatility, it doesn't really matter what one you talk about, but the ability to create the upper and lower body working together sort of thing. So you're going to look at turn shape on the way in, and then you're going to look at that connection through rotation on the way off. Those are the two things I'd work with this individual because they know how to rotate. They just need to clean that in run up. And my bet is if they did clean that in run up, wouldn't have been a problem. That's it.
oh, thanks. Well, especially that it's a small in run too. It looks like it's probably a small jumping. Thanks, James. Anything else to add? Nick, Green,
I was
good?
just gonna say, I think it's amazing. Like I keep watching it, and it looks like they're in the air before they even get to the edge of the jump. Like they're already spinning and floating before they get to the edge of the lip, and it's mesmerizing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I keep looking at it. It's yeah, pretty cool.
You can see the core action.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like,
athleticism.
but yeah, I agree with James. Those setup turns need to be worked on a little bit, and like creating a bit more rotation with the upper body too, because they kind of get jammed in the air. And then they have to finish the rotation with the board, like with the lower body. The upper body has to catch up.
Yeah, like quick.
Yeah. But yeah, that's good analysis.
Thanks. They'll drag the lip for the style. Thanks. Who's next? Is it James again?
Oh yeah, that's me. Let's
Oh,
do
that's
it.
you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a break from short turns for a minute here. Get some
Long term. We're going to
long, large
short to long.
turns. Yeah, yeah.
Is it the same? That's the same person.
That's the same
Yeah,
person as before. Yeah, same course.
I didn't realize.
Just watch him ride for a minute there. Yeah. So this was during a level three course, same level three course at Red Mountain. They're doing long turns on a wide blue pitch, and it was pretty funny because there's a bunch of kids that were like racing down. Somehow this person managed to find a window where there was no one just cutting them off. So good timing. But yeah, good riding. I mean, they have some solid edge grips and nice pencil lines. Good speed, position's nice, and good control. I mean, they look like they're having a really good time. That looks fun to me. So good stuff. Things that they could work on. I mean, it's a level three course, so we can stick with our advanced competencies. And the main thing I think that really jumps out to me is loading and deflecting, or I guess in this case, it's a bit of a lack thereof of loading and deflecting. Right, we can kind of see that as soon as they get, well, wait till it starts again there, but they'll look, as soon as they get the board on edge, they kind of just hold it until it's time to make it transition onto the next edge. There's not a lot of drive or trying to bend the board. It's kind of just static. Get the board on edge, hold it, hold it, and then to make that transition, right? So in terms of making a small adjustment that would make a huge difference, I mean, I'm just going to pick the low-hanging fruit here, and encourage our rider to maybe incorporate a little bit more vertical movement in their riding throughout their turns. Right. So once they set that new edge, I'd encourage them to maybe start flexing their knees, flexing their ankles to get lower and closer to the board. That's going to do a couple of things, but one of them is going to be to give them a little bit more range of motion to adjust that edge angle and allow them to get some sharper turns, which that automatically is going to load up the board with some energy.
Mhm.
It also creates that range of motion that you need to be able to push against the board to release that sort of energy when you get to the end of the turn. And that's the deflection that we're talking about. So it's a pretty simple movement, just kind of moving up and down on the snowboard and working pretty importantly with an element of timing. So we could get our rider to start slowly flexing down when they do their edge change, kind of getting at their lowest point about halfway through the turn. So maybe at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, kind of when the board's pointing down the fall line, and then start extending back up after that near the end of the turn. And when you do something like that, I mean, the feedback you get from your board is pretty immediate. As soon as you start to load it like this, you'll feel it. So I'd encourage your rider to maybe start slow, like making big turns, trying to really feel that buildup of energy, and then getting a sensation for what it's like to have that, and then gradually releasing it. And then with some practice and with some time, once you start getting comfortable with that movement and with the feeling that you're getting, like the feedback that you're getting from the board, then you can start to kind of turn it up and try higher speeds, tighter turns, steeper runs, and progressively just get more comfortable with that feeling. But I think this person's definitely on the right track, and simple changes would take their riding to the next level.
They should definitely attend the carving course like that.
Yes. Nice plug there, isn't it?
That would give them some time to spend, or maybe they should also try that nice race track that we see on the left there.
Yeah, well, that's where those kids were popping in and out of. I had another video from the same course where there's like 10 kids that are flying down the run, and the rider just keeps looking side to side, and they have to stop. It's pretty funny. This one gets a little bit less distracting.
Yeah, definitely the first things that come to mind. You say it in different word, but we hear it quite often too, like the park and ride style a little bit. So I'm going into my turn, I'm doing a little, and then I'm staying there. I'm holding on, no matter what's the speed that I'm taking, instead of just like moving with the turns, moving through the turns. James Breen, Nick, you were done. Yeah,
All done. That's it for me.
good.
I'm just gonna add one thing, not because that was dope, just because to give a different perspective on just a different skill. I think um, same sort of thing, but on this edge change, I think if the person worked getting higher edge angle earlier, that would create a different shape and a little bit different energy. wouldn't have to work as much with vertical, and you would start creating board bend a lot faster. And it would get that person to start react, like having to react to the forces that were being put instead of creating the forces, like physically, you can make the board's edge angle and the speed do the same sort of thing. Just this totally different approach, but same sort of thing, just less park and ridey. Get up, get on it and higher earlier.
Yeah, and that's definitely tied back to what Nick was saying by needing more load and deflect. Like this would create
Totally.
the this would make the person feel the load right from the start of the arc.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks. Good point. Next one. Oh, we have a kid.
This me?
I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay.
7 years old. Maybe.
Sweet. Okay, so Breen did a good job at touching base on, the true objective for having little shredders out is that they're having a good time. And you see this quite frequently, the upper and lower body wanting to always separate, right? Which makes the toe side turn way more awkward when they're getting used to trying to like be on that for a sustained amount of time. This rider switched right there at the end to their heel side because it was like, oh, you know what? I'm not feeling too comfy here. Just gonna get up onto my heel side and put it in my comfort zone. So, small things that can help riders like this. Same thing. This is great terrain that to take them on because it's kind of a little bit narrower. It's forcing that element of like fear to be on one edge or the other, but in a fairly controlled sort of green area, right? So we're not like putting them in some steep trees, but um, having the person follow, like this age is a perfect follow me age, right? Pretty mobile rider, got toe, got heel edge, and just working with a game like I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so it would be some sort of lightsaber on that front arm, and we're like taking out, I don't know, stormtroopers, something like that, where it's forcing that person to sort of close that toe side off. And just getting the little dude like a little bit more comfy, and then doing like some longer open runs where we're having longer traverses on that toe side edge, just to get that position set so that they can feel good about being on that toe side edge in kind of a fun aspect. The other thing would be like getting the person like for me, if I was shredding with this kid, they look pretty ready to go. So I would be finding like some small features where I could get them to ride like a side hit, but they have to hit it on their toe side edge, right? And it's not like going to send them up in the air, but it gives them some terrain specific target so that they know, hey, you know what? The only way to get into this, because I want to have fun, is to get onto my toe side edge. So I'm going to get a little bit more comfy. That's how I learned when I was a kid. I never had any lessons. They didn't even exist when I started snowboarding. So my thing was like, okay, I just need to be able to set my edge and then send it at whatever I'm trying to hit. So I take a little bit of a fun approach like that. Obviously, staying safe with our kids and making sure we're not being silly, but yeah, play, have fun.
Like that.
That's it.
Good. Um, he's very surfy. Like you can
Mm,
tell he's a feeler.
there's a feeling. Got
He's a
some inside info
5-year-old.
there, right?
Yeah, I know these kids. I had the permission to put them here in this video. Anything else to add?
I was just wondering if this is the same 5-year-old as earlier.
No, no, that's his brother.
Oh yeah, okay. I was wondering if there's like a progression from year to year.
No, I could have. I had to choose the videos. No, he's a really different rhythm of learning as well. That's crazy. Like the same kids, but definitely not growing at the same pace either, and also like state of mind, very different for same age. Took a lot more time for him to get on his actual like turning. I think the last video of the first kid you've seen, they were just about to link their turns, and like this kid took a little bit longer. But when he got it, then he got it, and he was like, okay, let's go. And Like no, don't want to add too much technique in there, but just like take them to the best runs with little rollers and make them have fun on the side tracks and stuff. they're, they're right there. Okay. All right. Next one. Who's this one?
This is me again. This is me again.
I lined them up.
Okay.
All of yours.
Yeah, apparently. Okay. So as I said earlier, there's a similar movement pattern, and in a rider at this level and with this footage, it's going to be really, really easy to see the top of the arc really doesn't exist. Okay. Like the board is there, but it's not doing a whole lot. So I want you to look at the top of the turn here. And what happens with the upper body at the start of the turn? Ooh, there we go. And there we go. Right. And you can see that that upper body is rotationally leading into the next turn. That's how they're actually making that edge change, right? And it's totally normal, totally, I mean, you see everybody do it at this level of riding, right? It's an easy way to help unweight the board and get the energy going the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like that more advanced rider that we saw earlier, I would say the same thing here. Resist that kind of rotation at the start of the turn. It's an upper body rotation, right? Like a big swing. So we're going to try to resist that type of rotation. I'm going to take this person back. And so for my style of teaching, I'm not as much like games and tactics, like traditional tactics. I like using terrain and a specific movement, right? So I'd take this person back, green run for sure, and then we'd rework that movement pattern. Just get those hips up and across. It's like this one movement. I'm gonna try. Hope maybe you'll be able to see this one movement right here. So my hips are on my heel side edge. You come up, and your hips move laterally across, and you come down, up, laterally across and down. It's like that much space. It's 12 inches. Your hips move, but it makes the biggest difference in anybody's riding. If those hips come across and onto the new edge and starts the sequence of movements, everything else is going to be gravy after that. If you can start and get people into that position. So take them back to some green terrain, rework that movement pattern, use speed and terrain to help build that person's confidence up. And then you take them back to this kind of conditions, and all they're thinking is up, across, and down. And they already know how to do the rotational thing. They already know how to stand on their board and sort of brace against the forces. So you're going to see a huge improvement just by changing that tiny little movement pattern, because the rest of the snowboarding stuff they know how to do. They're snowboarding, right? So we're not trying to change all of the riding, just a tiny little component. That's it.
Like that. Lots of good things. You can really see it, like the rotation, and kind of get stuck on the rotation a little bit.
Mhm.
Anything to add, team? Good. Thanks, James.
No worries.
Question in the chat? No. Oh, I know this writing.
Okay, I'm back. I'm going to be doing this one. So just watch this person snowboard. So again, the goal here was to just do a free run and have fun. That's all the goal was. So that can make analysis harder. I mean, if you're like, hey, we're going to do a black run and I want to see your level 2 turns. Obviously, it's going to make your analysis a little bit easier if you just tell the person to do whatever they want. They might just straight line down the hill, and then you won't really be able to give them much feedback. But my 2 videos that I used, the very first one and this one, they were shot on the same day and the same kind of steepness. So I just wanted to kind of compare the 2 and show you that, as James was talking a lot about patterns, like the patterns exist throughout the whole process from 1 to 4. So this person's been snowboarding for a lot longer and they've got a lot more time under their belts, but they still are having the same issues. My video is a little out of whack here, so I'll just kind of start analyzing and see if you can see what I'm looking at. So the other person, their turn shape was really open, especially the heel. Like they were very late to get onto their heel, and their heel was more of like a speed check, and there wasn't very much shape. So this person's got quite a bit more shape to their turn. So they're using their body a lot more. They're using their lower body a lot more. That first video, the person was very flaily with the upper body. So the torso was leading a lot of the rotation at the start. And then they're kind of stuck trying to control that rotation. So the video that we're looking at now, they're much better at using the lower body. The upper body is quite a bit more quiet. They're getting on to the heel and the toe edge a little bit faster, and so that's giving them some more turn shape. And the turn shape is helping them control their speed, so that's kind of what we're after.
I would say a lot faster, Breen.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so if you think of like the first competencies, there's centered and mobile. So is their rotational alignment all aligned? And for the most part, it is, but you can see a lot of the time their chest is kind of facing down the hill. So our neutral position is lined up with our front foot. So our chest is always going to be a little bit down the hill, but I could argue this person could maybe get a little bit better rotationally aligned, especially when they're moving onto their heel side edge. So James was talking a lot about resisting rotation. So if you're on a steep run and you're continuously kind of opening your upper body down the hill, well, then you're creating that rotational energy, and then you have to find a way of dealing with it later. Sweet 360 in there.
Which is why that 360 was so sweet, because he had that rotation going.
Right. So some points in the turn, this person, like especially on their heel edge, if you think of the fore and aft movement, if you can watch them, the toe side turn, they don't use a lot of aft at the end of the turn, but the heel side, they use quite a bit of that aft push at the end of the heel side turn. And that's them trying to control that rotational energy that they created high up in the arc. So if they could kind of resist that urge to twist their upper body down the hill and kind of rely on the ankle movement to start the edge so that the hips can kind of fall in, then again, they'd create less rotational energy, and they'd probably be in a stronger position towards the end of that turn. So if I'm thinking competency-wise, I'd probably go with steering versatility. So they're good at steering the snowboard, but sometimes they use maybe a little bit too much twist, and they could use a little bit more edge instead.
Sorry, Breen.
Yeah.
Breen. So you were talking specifically the heel side edge, like towards the end of the heel side, right?
Yeah, so you can see sometimes there's quite a big aft push to get themselves back on track to stop that energy.
Okay, cool.
But the toe side is not really there as much because the rotational alignment's a little bit better going into the toe side turn. And that's pretty natural. I mean, our hip opens really well on the heel side, and it doesn't open very well on the toe side edge. So it kind of makes sense.
So just to clarify there, Breen, you're talking about the top of the turn, you're too open, and that's what's creating the rotational energy all the way through the turn, correct?
Yes.
There you go, Dan. It's the top of the turn.
Okay. So he's too open at the top of the heel side. He's kind of using all of his energy too early, right?
Yeah, too much rotational energy too early. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. I'm just fighting with a 3-year-old. Yeah, so if I could create a little bit less at the top, then I won't have to deal with as much at the bottom. And so sometimes you can see my back leg gets really, really straight as I'm kind of pushing that snowboard away from me. Yeah, so having a little bit of problems there. Someone else can take over. I might have to argue with the 5-year-old a little bit more.
No problem. I think that's pretty good. I think we covered it. Nick, do you have anything to add?
No, I was just wondering what that skier was doing next to the jump, but I think Breen and James kind of summed it up.
They wanted to hit. I think they were packing out the lip to make it better.
I think the difference that we can see here, like compared to most of the other riders that we've seen previously, is the finesse of the adjustment that we can see in the lower body. Like you look at the slow motion, you'll see it too. Like the precision and the finesse of the ankles, and feet. And that's also why sometimes maybe from my perspective, why like the feet would go a little bit too quick compared to the body. So that could also help this rider achieve what he wants and resisting the rotation a little longer.
You can see a commonality in theme, though. Rotation at the top of the turn is not a good thing. Not early.
See your point, James. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. That's the last.
Yeah, I think sorry. No, I was going to say that's kind of interesting too, because for level 3, kind of 2 to 3, obviously we try to be more in that more attack position, and sometimes that gets translated into like more of an open upper body, and then that kind of when you're trying to like like you said, make these movements more refined and show more finesse, it's harder to do when you're like you've trained yourself now to like kind of be more open in the top half.
So the big thing there is that like if your body's in an open position, that does not necessarily mean that you're rotating to start anything, right? So Breen's problem is not that he's open. Breen's problem is that he moves open, he rotates open with the turn too early. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can be open. I can be in that kind of like open, ready position, like fully open. And if what initiates the turn is my hip and my ankle edging, like that first skill should be edge, not
Mm-hmm.
rotate. Right. So it doesn't like the body position. Yeah, it can with level 2 and level 3 riders, that body position can get confusing because what you actually have to do is create a little bit of separation between the upper
Yeah.
and lower. So you can be in that position, but the lower body's the one doing the work. So turning with the lower body aspect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't change the position, just change the movement.
Okay.
Let's see it here. Thanks. Okay, over to Nick. So that's the 5 years old you've seen before.
This is our 5-year-old. Cool.
Yeah, that was 13.
Still sliding on their heel edge, I see.
First day of the season.
Yeah. All right, so let's have a look here. I mean, we already saw it a couple of times, but let's have a look. So what we have here looks like a front side lip slide. And a 270, yeah. I mean, they seem pretty stoked. I think they would have probably been working at this one for a long time. Looks pretty happy to have landed it. So I'm not gonna steal their thunder here, but maybe give them a little bit of what they could work on to make this even better. So I mean, they have really good rotational skills because you can see when they land on the tube, the upper body is kind of like tipping forward, and they're really kind of like square to the feature, but they still managed to get that 270 out of it at the end. So that's like some really strong core, really good yeah, some really good rotation skills right there. So we'll watch here, jumping on. So they're coming off with their toe edge, and then the body's kind of just square, and then right at the end they managed to spin it around. That's pretty good. The main thing I would probably encourage a rider here to try to do is you see when they're kind of landing, like when they land on the feature, you can see that the board's actually kind of like tilted to the side that they came on, and they're still kind of standing straight in the middle of the board. So they've got their weight distributed pretty much equally on both feet. I would encourage them to try just for style, but also just to get more comfortable sliding on rails. Like this is a movement that for me helped me a lot. It's kind of learning how to move your upper body over one side or the other. So really trying to center your upper body over the feature, but then understanding how you can do fore and aft on the rail. So you're balancing over your front foot or your back foot. And on this one, I'd encourage a rider to try to get balanced over the left foot. So you kind of just like slide the rail or you slide the board underneath your body, and then they'd be sliding over the nose of the board, which I think would look really cool, but it would also make the trick feel a lot different and probably feel a little bit more balanced. And then at the same time, once you get used to that, on a big feature like that, that's so big and round, like you can bank the board on the side of it. So here they'd be bank it like kind of on that side, and then you can kind of do like a nollie at the end. That's gonna help you pop out of the trick, but make you feel like you have way more control, and that's also gonna make the rotation feel a lot smoother underneath you. You don't have to fight it as much. It's just gonna come around. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Like it.
Yeah, that's a good trick. Really cool. That feature looks really fun too, actually.
Any other thing to add, James, Breen? I really like the visualization part. You know, I like this part, the stokeness, but also this part where the writer just
Yeah, yeah,
visualizes
yeah. They're really like they've
themselves in.
been thinking. It looks like they've been like this has been a battle, and then they just got it,
Yeah.
just unlocked it. Yeah, yeah.
Woo! Oh,
Cool.
yeah, this is cool to see.
Our 5-year-old has come a long way.
Yeah. Okay, last video of the session. I forgot there was one more. James,
Okay,
yours.
this one's you guys are gonna hate me because I already know what I'm gonna say about this, and it's basically the same thing, but a little bit different. It's not a rotational move, but it is. You're gonna notice this rider. Take a look at his hips on both toe and heel side edge. Take a look at the position of the hips on both toe and heel side edge. Oh, they came in there at the end. So you see how they're at the end of his toe side turn, there's that like hip push. He kind of like just pushes in there. Um, if he could like take that hip push and move it up at the top of the arc, that would be ideal. Because what's happening is his bum's getting stuck behind, right? Timing and sequence. So the top of the arc, and this is a fairly open term, but the concept and the movement pattern stays the same. You move up and across with the hips to put the hips, which is your center of mass, and your entire body into the edge, or into the arc before anything starts. And if it comes late, then if they're late to the party, everything that's where everything kind of breaks down, right? So good snowboarding starts with anticipating at the end of that last turn, you got to anticipate where to put those hips into the next turn. So it's kind of like a fun game. And that's essentially what we're doing. This rider, to get a little bit better, super solid, like on the edge, the person's coming, for all intents to performance. That's where it's going to get your mass on top of that. Start bending the board early. Have that arc really loaded up right at the top. So hips need to come up and across the board and down. And that every single person here is going to work on that this year. I guarantee it because anytime you hear me say it, it's what I'm working on. It's what everybody's working on. You look at the best carvers in the world; those people are so good at getting their hips, their center of mass into that arc and railing. Like that's the only way you can be balanced. So essentially you just want to be popping them hips into the arc, right? And that's your only job, really. And then the rest is gravy. You can figure out how to do different turns. But if you can anticipate and get your hips inside that arc.
Did you say move up and then hips across? That's what you mean?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, is that
Good. Anything else to add? No? Cool.
Just that it sounds really simple, but it is hard to do.
It
Oh,
is.
so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. For the
It's-
rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's just a scale of like you and it just always you can do it on a green run, just build it up from there and for the rest of your life. It's the art of turning, right? Like you're essentially that's the one key move
Yeah, and
in
it's
my humble opinion.
I totally agree. And that's also that dimmer that you're gonna play with. right? The intensity and the rhythm that you're going to use that exact same movement according to the outcome you're trying to achieve, depending on the conditions, the slope, the steepness. Oh, hips are a big movement. There's something here. Okay, the timing in the specific situation makes it hard. Speed, steepness. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. So A and I, you've seen this exercise before. This can be easily practiced with what we've done tonight or at home with other videos or on snow when you'll start your teaching season. And this is something to keep in mind always. So the big picture as a whole, the context, the student, like we were doing for these videos, for example, just giving a little bit of context about the situation and especially about this B point, the intention, which is an important part of the analysis. Like I think, especially when you're working individual basis, like one-on-one privates, also in a group, but in a one-on-one private, you really have the time to develop that intention with the students. So that's something to really work on. To keep that in mind, at least to achieve realistic goals, right? Also, so then narrowing your focus. If you think about the CASI competency, you want to think about one competency, then narrow it down to one skill component at the time. And then ask yourself the question, is the student, yes, you can go straight ahead with, straight away, sorry, with the competencies question. So is the student centered and mobile? Is this the person strong? Are they demonstrating flow? Pivoting too much or not enough? Too soon, too late? When is it too late? In which type of situation, for example? Edging too aggressively or too passively? Too early, too late, and then you can narrow down your focus. So delivering improvement and relating it to the competencies, especially when if you're teaching CASI courses, if you're an evaluator, but also when you're using it in your day-to-day teaching with students, relating it to the competencies. These are great tools and they cover pretty much everything. So delivering the improvement with, okay, try to be centered, try to do that. To be mobile, try to do that. To develop, try, etc. So I hope this is helpful for you, this session. So that was the last session of the season. Are there any other questions? I'm just going to monitor the chat. Seems like we covered everything. So thanks everybody for attending tonight. I think this was a really good session. Thank you, Nick, James, and Breen for your time and for your exceptional A&I. And we really hope to see you, everybody, on snow very soon.
Yeah, see you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao. Where's my recording?
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya.